Okay, so we're going to start 11.3, part 1, and it's on what we call Slope-Intercept Form. Okay? What basically that is it's an equation of a line. Okay, there's different ways you can write the equation of a line. Slope-Intercept Form is one of them. Okay, let's take a look at this graph.
Hey guys, this is just review this intro stuff. It's not on your guided notes, so don't worry about it. Just listen.
Okay, we're going to talk about a couple things called intercepts. Okay, intercepts, if you look at the title of the lesson, slope-intercept, okay, what we're doing today has something to do with that. And I've labeled two special points here, M and N. Okay, what's the axis that goes horizontal? Matt? That's your x-axis. And what about the one that goes vertical? That's your y-axis. Good. The 2 points M and N are where this line crosses the x and the y-axis, respectively. Okay? Those are two special points. Okay, so the first one, it's called your X-intercept. And there will be a question on the test that asks you about intercepts. So this is important. An X-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis. In our case, it's right at -3. Any question on that? You just look where it crosses. Okay, if there's a question on the test, it's going to be very easy to see where it crosses. It's not going to be a decimal or in between. It's going to be right at a nice number. 5, -3, something like that.
You never told us what example was going to be on
Tomorrow.
Yep, it'll be tomorrow. Yep, tomorrow. Hey, what do you think point N is called? If M was your x-intercept, what do you think N is?
Your y-intercept?
It's your y-intercept. Okay? So your y-intercept, that's where your line crosses the y-axis. Okay? In our case, if you look at it, it's at 4. Right? So the y-intercept and x-intercept, they're just numbers. Just a single number. Any question on that? All right, so next we're going to look at how do you actually write the equation of a line using the slope. That's one thing you need to know. Okay, slope and the y-intercept. Okay. The reason you need both is because, let's take a look at this line. If you compared the slopes of the two lines that I've drawn, what would you say about the slopes?
They're parallel.
Yeah, they're parallel. They look the same. So if you just know the slope of a line, that's not enough. Okay, it doesn't tell you, is it this line? Is it this line up here? Could be any of those lines. But if you know the slope and you know where it crosses the y-axis, that's enough information to narrow it down, and now you know where the line goes. Okay, so there's two pieces of information we're going to look at. Slope and y-intercept. We're not going to look at the x as much. Okay, the x, it's there, but the y-intercept is the one we use most of the time.
All right, guys. Last year in middle school, again, guys, doesn't this look like just like what's on your notes?
Yeah.
Looks just like it, right? Okay, make sure I'm not going crazy here. We talked about, who can tell me yesterday? We did the slope, Monday I should say. Monday we did the slope formula, right? Who can tell me what the formula was just to find slope? Anybody tell me? What was the slope formula we talked about on Monday? Isaiah.
y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
Good. So that's when like you're given 2 points and we ask you to find the slope. You want to use that slope formula. Now we're getting into slope-intercept form. All right? Kayla? Absolutely. I was going to ask that question. Exactly. Y, you're going to write in your box just like this. Y equals mx plus b. Right in that box. Right? Because it says right inside the box, that's what we're doing. All right? Again, now, next year, junior year in your geometry, this formula doesn't go away. It always shows up. Stuff we do in chapters after this, it may show up again. So you need to know this formula. You need to know what this stuff means. I'll make sure tomorrow on your right here, study guide on the worksheet for tomorrow night. I'll make sure there's a space for you guys to write that in. So you have it for the test on Friday. But here's the thing. Oops. So, first, we have, what does each thing mean? Each thing means something. So, we got first, in that first column, we're going to write y. Right? We're going to write the y. Just like it is up here, we have to follow this format. Okay? So, your first bullet's going to be, it has to be first in the equation by itself. Nothing else can be attached to it. It can't be 3y. It can't be negative y. Right? It can't be like that. It has to be by itself. There can be nothing else attached to it. It has to be by itself. Okay? Now, just like we talked about yesterday when we were doing slope, when we have our y, all right, there are going to be some ifs. If these things are going on, you have to do something. All right? If, this is supposed to be a negative. If there's a negative attached, there's a negative, this is all based on y. If there's a negative attached, you're going to divide everything in the problem by -1. All right? You're going to divide everything in the problem by -1. So if it was like negative y equals 2x plus whatever, 4, I would divide everything by -1. I'm going to divide everything by -1. Why did I do that? Why did I divide everything by -1? What needs to happen? Who can tell me? Stop writing for a second. Look at the board. Why would I divide everything by -1? What do I need to happen? Isaiah.
Well, you want it to be consistent.
Want it to be consistent, good. What else? Again, I want the y to be positive. All right? And we can pretend, and even if it's a negative, I can pretend there's like a -1 attached. So to get rid of something, this means multiplication, I have to do division. That will give me what I want. That will give me the positive y that I want. Y equals -2 over 1x minus 4. There's my equation right there. If I had a -y attached. All right? If I have a number attached, like a 2, a 5, a -2, whatever. If there's something attached to the y, I have to divide everything by whatever number it is. It could be a positive, it could be a negative. But whatever's attached to it, I have to divide by. Sometimes there might not be anything attached, but sometimes there is. All right, so if there's a number attached, I'm going to divide everything by that number. And just like we talked about those 3 ifs yesterday, I look again. Maybe I got a 4 on the top and a 2 on the bottom. Do they go in evenly? Yeah. What would it become, Kayla? 2. Just 2. I can just leave it as 2. All right? So I look at the number on the top. Is it bigger than the number on the bottom? If they go in evenly, you want to change it. Can it be reduced? Maybe I got 3 over 6. I can reduce that, right? How can I reduce that, Victoria? If it's 3 over 6, what number would I use to reduce it? What would I divide by to reduce it? Divide everything by 3, right? On the top I would get what? 3 divided by 3 is what, Victoria? 1. On the bottom I would get 2. So that's how I would reduce that. All right? And again, like we talked about yesterday, you might, this showed up a little bit in our homework last night. If the top and bottom are both negative, then the whole thing becomes a positive. If it's like -1 over -2, it will become what? Huh? 1/2. Positive, right? Remember, fractions are division problems. A fraction is a division problem. So if I got a negative divided by a negative, it becomes a what? Positive, right? That's why that happens. All right, so again, we have some ifs with the y. Again, in the past, guys, when I've done this, some teachers assume that you guys know this. Like, yeah, there's a negative attack. They're going to divide by -1. It doesn't get covered. That's why we're covering it. because I've seen it happen before. I want to give you those, Mr. Hager and I want to give you those little hints so you know what's going on. All right, so we got that. Let's go down to M next. Does anybody know what the M stands for by raising their hand? Spencer. M represents slope. We talked about that a little bit yesterday, okay? So let's look at M. When I look at M, right? M means, like Spencer just told me, means slope.
Can you
When I-
do it like one at a time?
Oh, sure. Good point. So guys, in this column right here, you want to have M, okay? In the little skinny column. So your M, or your slope, or you might want to add, up here, we're going to do it after, but you might want to add number with all right? That's like, the X is kind of like your roadmap. The X, whatever number that X is attached to, that tells you, yes sir, that is my slope. Whatever's attached to the X is my slope. That's like a little hint. If it has the X attached, that's the slope. Okay? It always, if I go back up, it always has to be the first thing to the right of the equal sign. I have to follow this order. So the first thing to the right of the equal sign has to be my number with X. Has to be my slope. We have to, and a lot of times, we're going to get to that in our next bullet. Most times, usually, it's going to be on, sometimes it might say like y plus, I'll write it over here. You might get something like that, all right? So if we're going to try to trick you in y, it's not going to be in the slope-intercept form, most of the time, that's why I put usually, we'll start with it on the left side, all right? You have to move it to after or to the right side of the equal sign by doing the opposite operation, just like we've done before. We're going to move it right after the equal sign. So to move this, I notice I got my y first, but then, I got my x, then I got my equal sign. So it's in the wrong order. Exactly, it's like Kayla just said. Subtract 2x. Now here's the key when you rewrite it. Here's my equal sign. What's left on this side, guys? Y is left on this side. What's going to come on the right-hand side of my equal sign? What am I going to put?
2x.
Well, you're on the right track. I like the 2x. Exactly. I think of it like this. I'm taking, we're doing it in Christmas colors. I'm taking it and I'm moving it to the other side of the equal sign. In order to move it, you've got to give it a ticket. So if it's negative, give it a positive ticket. If it's positive, give it a negative ticket. And say, okay, man, go on vacation. I know it sounds corny, I know it sounds stupid, but it might help you guys to remember. Give it its ticket and say, hey, man, you're going on vacation to the other side of the equal sign. That's where you're supposed to be. That's where your friends are. That's where, whoever you hang out with, that's where they are. All right? So I give it its ticket. I give it its negative sign. I move it to the right-hand side, right after the equal sign. What's left?
6.
What type of 6?
Positive.
Positive, right? Remember, there's no sign there, so we assume that it's positive. But, there's no plus sign. Again, you have to know enough to say, there's no equal sign, but I have to put one. I got to put plus 6. Is that in slope-intercept? Is that in slope-intercept? Is y by itself? There's nothing else attached. It follows the formula, right? The form. Y, y. Equal sign. Number with x, number with x. Just a number, just a number. It follows that form. Isaiah?
Wouldn't you divide it by negative 2x next?
No, don't have to do that. If there was something with the y, Isaiah, I would. But if there's nothing attached to the y, there's nothing else left with it, you are done. If it's in that order, you are done. And then if I asked you, well, let's do the next one. We'll go to the next part. We're going to go down. And again, so it's usually, we're going to move to the after the equal sign by doing the opposite operation, which we just talked about. Yesterday, we did slope, right? We did like, who told me earlier? Isaiah told me y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Slope formula, correct? Remember the three ifs that we talked about yesterday? Anybody remember any of the three ifs that we talked about? People that were here on Monday? Sorry, Monday. Thank you, Victoria, for correcting me. Anybody remember those three ifs that we talked about?
No.
What if the top and bottom are negative?
Make it a positive.
Make it a positive, right? What if the top is bigger than the number on the bottom? What should I look and see if I can do? Reduce them if they go in evenly, right? And if I can reduce them, reduce them. You want to do the same thing here with whatever the x is. If you can reduce it, reduce it. All right? If it's negative on the top, negative on the bottom, make sure you make it positive. Those three ifs show up again. That's why I put that. And again, you guys have, people that were here yesterday, you have your notes, Monday. People that were here Monday, you have your notes. People that weren't here, talk to somebody, make sure you get it. Now, last, in our skinny column, we have the b. It's the last piece of the equation.
It's the y-intercept.
Exactly. We make sure we should also add that. It's the y-intercept. And when we get to this next column a little bit later, we'll talk about that. All right, so it's the y-intercept. It's the last piece of the equation. It's that last piece. All right? It's always a number only. -2, 2, 3. It could even be, it could be,
Then if it's not there, it's 0.
it could be 0. If there's nothing, if there's like 2, if it's like y equals 2x, like Kayla just said, your y-intercept is 0, because there's nothing listed, so it would be 0. All right? But it's always a number only. It could be a fraction too, but it's always a number only. There's no variable attached. Never. Okay? We go down. Remember, like we talked about up here, the sign to the left goes with the y-intercept. That makes a huge, huge, huge difference. The sign to the left goes with it. It's either going to be positive or negative. There's no other option. Right? Like we talked about before. If there's no sign to the left of the y-intercept, we assume that it's what, Joe? If there's no sign to the left, we assume that it's what? Positive, right? No, we assume that it's positive. No sign, we assume that it's positive. Sign to the left goes with it. All right? So when we go back up to the example we looked at before, over here, right? We said, okay, we had to know enough that there was no sign, but because there's no sign, I know that it's positive. Okay? So that covers what everything kind of represents. Okay? So now, we're going to write an equation of the line with a slope of 1/2 and a y-intercept of -5. So, let's start with this. Let's start with the obvious, what we just talked about. Justin, what do we want to use?
Our formula.
Which is?
Y equals mx plus b.
Y equals mx plus b. Excellent. So, we know for sure, Sam S., we know for sure that our equation has to start with what? Y followed by what? What should come after it? What should be next?
It's equal.
Equal, okay, sorry, thank you. Equal sign. Now, when we give you something like this, you're going to start it like that every time. Y equals. All right? Now, it says with a slope of 1/2 and a y-intercept of -5. So, Brian Shaw, it's telling me I got a slope of 1/2 and a y-intercept of -5. What is going to come after my equal sign? 1/2. But Brian, I have a question. It's m, and it says slope up here. How did you know to put that 1/2 where the m is? But what does that m stand for? M stands for slope. When it gives you a slope, make sure you plug it in to the M spot. M stands for slope. You have that on your chart we just filled up. Joseph, what should come after that? After I put my 1/2 in there, right? The next thing in my order, the next thing in my formula is what?
Plus B.
Okay, I'm going to put plus, but what has to go with that 1/2? What has to go with that 1/2, Sam? The X, right? Remember, like I said, that's our roadmap. That's our little hint saying, yeah, okay, it's got the X with it. That I know for sure it's going to be my slope. All right? Now, we'll finish it off with the B, right? What's the B going to be, Emma? -5, right? Y-intercept is B. B stands for Y-intercept. My suggestion for this one would be, guys, we don't need to put the plus sign. We can just do -5. All right, we can just do -5. Y equals 1/2 X minus 5. All right, the negative overtakes the positive when that situation happens. If you write 1/2 X plus -5, we won't mark it wrong. But just know that the -5 goes there. Okay? In this problem, Katie, in this problem, if I asked you to identify the slope, what would you say? So which would be? 1/2. Guys, if we give you an equation like this, and we ask you to identify the slope, don't write the X. The X is just telling you, yes, it's the slope. But when we ask you to identify it, like on the test, we give you the equation, and we ask you to identify the slope, don't write X. You don't need to. Only write the number that's with X. That's all. Okay? You guys with me? All right. Let's go on to the next one. 1B, right? On the bottom of your page. Take 20 seconds and fill it out. Take 20 seconds and fill it out on your sheet. And then you guys can tell Mr. Hager what to write. If you have to, just like I did in the last one, write out your form first, then plug in your stuff. Write out your form first, then plug in your stuff. Chauncey? This is one thing.
Let's start out with that. What's that equation you start out with? Yep. Okay, in that equation, what are the two letters we need to fill in for? M and B. Do we fill in for the X and the Y? No. Okay. You don't fill in for the X and the Y, just the M and the B. Who can tell me what M is this time? Raise your hand. Yep, Elijah?
-2/3 X.
Yep. M is -2/3. And what did you say goes next to it? X. Okay, what's going to come next? Brian? Plus. Now we know what B is, right? What is B? B is 3.
Hey guys, some people, and it's great, because I'm telling people they forgot one thing. A lot of you guys are forgetting to put the X. All right, remember, when we're giving you the slope and asking you to write the equation, you need to put in the X. If we give you the equation and we ask you for the slope, you don't need to put the X. All right, let me say that again so people understand. If we're asking you to write it, and in this situation we gave you the slope, you need to make sure you put the X with it. If Mr. Hager and I on the test on Friday, we give you the equation, we give you Y equals -2/3 X plus 3, and we ask you to identify the slope, you do not need to put the X. Just so we're clear on that. Okay?
Everybody see that? Okay, so both your slope and your y-intercept, they're just numbers. Okay, and I've circled just to make sure you know which one is which. So any question on that? If we give you a slope, We give you an y-intercept. How you write the equation of the line. All right. So now we want to try to do the same thing again. Okay. Is this in slope-intercept form? No, why not? What's wrong with it? Okay, the 3 in front of the y, yeah. What else?
Wait,
Y, that's the big idea.
That's one big thing.
Y isn't alone.
One more thing too. Y is not alone. What else? Look at,
On the wrong side is 2x.
huh? Okay, you sent it on the other side. Okay. What about the x? Look at the x. Where should the x be? On the right of what? It has to come directly after the equal sign, right? So who can tell Mr. Hager what he needs to do to get that there? What needs to happen?
Yeah, say on.
Subtract 2x.
Good.
The left side.
Just from the left?
No, subtract it.
You said subtract it from the left, right?
Yeah.
Where else?
9.
Can't just do it to one side.
On both sides.
Both sides, yeah.
And guys, just so we know, all right? When Mr. Hager does this, all right, we have this, right? We have 9 minus 2x. I think of it this way sometimes too. We say usually like the first step when we do an equation, right? We can solve an equation, right? The first thing we do is distributive property. What's another thing we can check to see if we can do when we're solving equations? Distributive property or what else? 3 letters. CLT. What is it? Brian? Combine like terms. So it's almost like we're combining like terms here. So I'll get, when I do this, I'll get 7x. No, how come, Kayla? They're not the same. They're not the same thing. How come they're not the same thing, Kayla? It's not an x. All right? Say it again, Eli. Negative 2x plus 9. It's almost like you're writing out the fact that you can't combine like terms. You're writing it out because you can't combine them. So you have to write it all out. Or, like I said to you guys earlier, circle your negative 2x and draw an arrow right after the equal sign. I do it that way sometimes too. Whatever works for you. Kayla.
Both sides.
Exactly. Guys, listen.
Okay, so you're going to divide by 3. You're going to do it in every spot.
Everywhere.
Now you got to look at all your fractions. Okay, if any of them can be reduced, we reduce it. What happens when you do 3 divided by 3? That cancels out and you get just y.
Again, guys, that's the whole reason why we made all this math for ourselves. That's the whole reason why we divided everything by 3. Because we want to get that y by itself. That's why we're doing it.
How about my slope? Is there anything I can do there to reduce it? Does negative 2, does 3 go into it? Nope. Then that fraction is as simple as it can be. How about 9 divided by 3? That's 3. Okay? So there's your equation. Y equals negative 2/3 x plus 3. Did we do everything that they wanted us to do? Yeah. They still want us to do 2 things. Identify the slope.
I get it now.
Minus the 2x.
I get it now.
Yep, and identify your y-intercept. Who can identify the slope?
Me.
Right.
Negative 2.
Okay, so your slope is negative 2/3.
What'd you say?
And what about your y-intercept? 3. Okay, so slope is negative 2/3. Y-intercept 3. Any question on that? Okay, so these are probably the toughest problems we do today. Just getting y by itself. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, the directions say to write that in slope-intercept form.
It is easy.
that equation in slope-intercept form?
No.
No.
That's your
No.
slope.
Why isn't it slope-intercept form?
It's not, the y is not by itself.
Right.
The x is in
On one side of that equation,
M is,
you got to have y by itself. All right, so, what, okay, guys up here. What did we say? What has to be by itself?
Y.
Okay. How are we going to get y by itself?
Simplify.
Well, there's nothing to simplify. Okay, but you do have to subtract something from each side. Okay, minus 3x, minus 3x. What happens on the left to 3x minus 3x? What's on the left-hand side now? Just y? What about the right-hand side? What's 0 minus 3x? Plus, what would you put? There's plus 0. There's nothing there. If it's a plus 0, you don't need to write it.
and sometimes, guys, it might look just like that. It might look just like Mr. Hager has one right there, right? So in that case, Justin, what's your slope? No. What's your slope? We always say the slope has what attached to it? X. So what's the number of x? -3. Good. Travis, what's the y-intercept? What's the b? 0, right? We don't have, there's nothing listed there, so we put 0.
Any questions on that? Okay, everybody feel like they can get y by itself and then tell us the slope, tell us the y-intercept? Okay.
All right, so guys, this is on that we're going back. Make sure on that front page now. We're going back to that, the table on the front, right? So, this skinny column right here is going to be the what, guys? Who can tell me? This is my y. We already filled out all this information. But now, again, when we see what it represents, that kind of stuff, all right, now we're getting to the fact of what do I need, what do I need y for when I graph? So now you have to take, sometimes we'll have to ask you to take that equation, once you've got y by itself and everything's in the right order, we're going to ask you to graph it. And there's certain things, the y tells you one thing, how to graph it. The m tells you another thing, how to graph it. The b tells you another thing, how to graph it. The y, we know we can graph it, all right, when we get it in the right form. So it needs to be the first thing and by itself in order to graph it. So it's going to be y equals something, right? Something with an x and a number. But it needs to be first. You can't just say, it can't just be like, 3y plus 2 equals 7. Number one, y is not by itself. Number two, it's not in the right order. You can't just say, yeah, I'm all set, I can graph it now. It's got to be in that slope-intercept formula. All right, so it needs to be first and by itself in order to graph it. Next thing is going to be our what? M, which is the, who can tell me by raising their hand? What's the M represent? Victoria. M is the slope. Awesome. So the first thing, like we talked about, we know it's the slope because it has what with it? The x with it, right? X is our little hint saying, yeah, okay, that's the slope. You got it. Good. Right? It always has that x attached. Next thing. You're going to use your rise, just like we talked about yesterday, right? Your rise over your run. Spencer, please pay attention. All right? The three, so,
He's threatening to cut off my earlobe.
he's very hostile today. I don't know why. He was hostile in learning support today, so I don't know why. He's angry.
Supposedly, I eat
I don't know if maybe he thinks it's going to get cold. He might think he's going to get cold or snowman poop for Christmas. I don't know. So listen, we're going to use the rise. Stay with me. We're going to use the rise over the run. Stop passing notes. I know he's a good-looking guy, but leave him alone.
Let's not.
We're going to use the rise over the run to graph it. but you gotta do the y-intercept first. All right? Your y-intercept, I want to get to that in a second. All right? But this tells, the slope, the m tells you where to go. Think about yesterday, right? Let's go back to yesterday. I'll write it up here. We said the slope can be represented how, right? What do we call slope? 3 words.
Rise over run.
Rise, over, run. Swagtastic. All right? Then you had something that looked like this yesterday, right? Guys, stay with me. All right, guys, stay with me and listen. Guys, we're almost there. Stay with me. Yeah, I know. There's smoke outside. Wow.
They're burning sugar.
They're burning sugar again. Okay. So, guys, listen. Marcus, we got it, buddy. Thank you, though. I don't need your help, but thank you. All right, my rise, right? If it's, I have 2 choices. My rise can be what? Positive
Or negative.
or negative. If it's positive, what direction?
Up.
Up. Negative? Down. Same thing down here. This is exactly from the notes yesterday. So you might have to look back. Right? Positive, I go what direction? Right.
Alright.
If it's negative, I go left. So that's what I mean. Where it says use rise over run, you have to plot the y-intercept first. Kayla, I understand you know how to do it, but a lot of other people don't. So please.
Some people aren't as smart as you.
All right? So we do that. Now, the last thing is going to be my what? My what? B.
I think you say Y or X axis.
So, this is where it crosses the y-axis. You may want to draw yourself a little coordinate grid, like this. Which one's your y? Up or down or across? Up and down, right? That's my y. So, the y-intercept, you graph it on the y-axis. That's where the next thing. It's where you start your graph at whatever this number is in your equation. You might want to add on y-axis. You always want to start in the y-axis. That's why it's called the y-intercept. This is where, so once you get it in slope-intercept form, you want to look at the y-intercept. That's where you're going to start your graph. You're going to start your graph at the y-intercept. It's where the line, like Mr. Hager talked about earlier in the notes, it's where it crosses the y-axis. Huh? Everybody's got this? Okay. So next thing, it's going to ask you to graph y equals 3 over 4x plus 2. So again, I hear stuff moving, which is a good thing. So when I do this, right? When I'm asked to graph this, first thing I have to look at is what? Before I even say what the y-intercept is, what the slope is, what's the first thing I have to look at? Who can tell me by raising their hand? What's the first thing I have to look at? Isaiah.
Where you start.
Even before I do that,
Why?
what do I have to look and see? Victoria. Okay, before I do that, before I get to the slope, before I get to the y-intercept, what do I have to do? I have to see if it's in the right formula, right? What's the formula I'm looking for? You can tell me by raising their hand. Y equals mx plus b. So, based on this equation right here, if you think, stay with me, Ben. If it's in slope-intercept form, if it's in y equals mx plus b, raise your hand. Is it y equals mx plus b? Raise your hand. Perfect. Correct. It is in y equals mx plus b. Everything's in the right order. Now, next thing. Spencer, when I do my graph, where do I start? The y-axis.
Yeah.
Where on the y-axis?
Up.
How many?
3, of course. What? 2.
How come I'm going to start at 2?
Because that's the number.
What is 2 in my equation, in my formula, in slope-intercept? What is the 2? The b. And the b is the what? The y-intercept. Whenever I graph, I have to start at the y-intercept. Which one's the y? Mr. Hager's marking it right now, right? X-axis. What's this one?
X.
X. What's this one?
Y.
What's this one?
X.
What's this one?
Y.
Y. Start at the y-axis. Now, stop talking, please. Why are you touching me?
Okay, so after you graph your intercept, okay, what do you have to look at
Guys,
next?
group of 4, please stop talking, because we're not done yet.
The 3 over
If you turn around, that makes me think you're talking.
You got to look at the slope. Now, with the slope, I want you to always do it one of 2 ways. From this point, if everything is positive, you're going to go in a certain direction. If it's negative, we'll go in a different direction. We're either going to go up and to the right or down and to
So
the
guys,
right.
what should Mr. Hager be, Ben, what should Mr. Hager be looking at next?
The 3 over
3 over 4, which is in the what spot in that equation? If 2's the y-intercept, which stands for? Slope. Again, if he wants to look back, that's fine. I'm not looking to memorize this stuff. Great, I want him to use his notes. There's nothing wrong with that. So, from that 2, Ben, what is Mr. Hager going to do?
Go up.
Up how many?
3.
Yeah?
Over 4.
Which way?
To the right.
Good.
And that's it. Once you have 2 dots, then just draw in.
So you don't do the reciprocal?
Nope. Just draw in your line.
Wait, don't you do the
Right?
other way?
Nope. You're done.
Guys, I know some other teachers have required you to do like the opposite. Mr. Hager and I are not requiring you to do that. Graph the y-intercept, do the slope, and you are done. That's it.
Well, can we do it?
If you want to, yeah, go nuts.
It's easy.
Okay. So, as Isaiah said, instead of going up and to the right, you can go the other way. If you go down and you go to the left, you do reach another point. But just pick one way, do it that way, so you don't get confused. Okay?
Guys, take a minute. Do this one on your own. Take a minute. It's on your thing.
Mr. Wright, for time, I think I'm going to go over it with
Okay.
if we're done. All right, so what's the first thing you have to do when you're trying to graph it?
No, don't help Sam.
Okay, first thing you want to do is check if it's in y equals mx plus b.
Yes.
Is it in y equals mx plus b?
Yes.
Okay. What's the first number there you need to focus on?
3.
The 3. What does the 3 tell you?
Y-axis.
What about it?
It's positive.
Okay. What does the 3 tell us? I still haven't heard that.
Then you go up.
That's where you start.
Right. Okay, the 3 is where you start. Okay, where it crosses the y-axis. So put a dot on 3. Yep. Now, what is our slope in this case? Haven't heard the slope correct yet. Heard a few different things.
Okay, you go down
Negative
1
1/2.
over 2.
Down 1 and which way over?
Left. No, because they're both negative. But
So I-
it doesn't show that it's a negative, the one's not above the line.
So go ahead, Isaiah. What do you do?
Wouldn't the 1/2 be, like, both of the numbers be negative because it's
Nope, it's just negative 1/2. If you want to think of it like that, same thing. This is this.
So, don't you go,
So from that y-intercept, where do we go? Yep,
down 1 into the right 2?
down 1 and right 2. So good. You listen to what I said. Either go up and right or down and right. How do you know if you go down? If it's negative.
I'm so confused. You just said that. You just said up and right.
Oh, that confused
Or down and right. You just said up and right or down and right.
So when you're graphing a line, you have two choices. You can go, guys, I need you guys to be quiet. Okay? When you're graphing a line, after you graph your y-intercept, if it's a positive slope, you go up and to the right from the y-intercept. If it's a negative slope, like it is in this case, you go down and to the right.
You never go left.
I'm not going to have you go left because then you got to think about, wait, do I go left or right? Okay? I'm not saying you can't, but then it's confusing.
That negative up there is just for, that was negative also.
Nope. That negative just tells us up or down.
Yeah.
So, any questions on how you graph this line? Okay, so just to review, what's your first step? Yep, make sure your equation is y equals mx plus b. Good. What do you do next?
See if there's a place you need to start at.
Yep, and what's that called? What's that number? It's the y-intercept. See if there's a number there. If you saw something like that, where would you put your y-intercept? Right in the middle at the origin. Good. Okay. So you mark your y-intercept. After you mark your y-intercept, what's the last number you need to look at? Slope. Okay. How do you use the slope to get another point on the line? You do rise over run. Where do you start from? Yep, but where do you do the rise over run from? You start from the origin?
No, you start from your y.
Start from your y-intercept. Start from your y-intercept. If the slope is negative, that's when you go down, and then you go right. If it's positive, which way would I go?
Right.
I would go up and to the right. So if this problem was y equals 1/2 x, you'd draw a line through those points. But since it was negative 1/2, this line should be slanting down as you go to the right. A positive slope, which way does the line slant? Up as you go. Well, it slants up as you go to the right. Okay? That's a positive slope. It slants up as you go to the right. Okay? So, for homework tonight, you guys will be doing a worksheet just like we did last night.
Whoa, why?